Thanks for tuning in to the Elias Makos show on this Monday. I was off for the last couple of weeks. I took a vacation, and it was over that vacation that we got the absolutely terrible news of Egbert Gaye's passing. And I found out about Egbert Gaye passing away via my email. So I was in Greece, and I needed to check my email about a rental car. And, when I go on vacation, I actually like to take the phone and throw it away. Some vacations are better than others on actually doing that. And I knew I had to check this email just to make sure that where I was going to meet the person in order to get the rental car. So I land in Greece, and I turn on my phone, and I go right to my email. And when I opened up my email, there was the alert from CJAD 800 about Egbert Gaye's passing. And the news hit me like a ton of bricks. Egbert Gaye has been a part of this program from the start. If we look back at the show, we actually started on New Year's Eve. December 31st, 2018 was our first show. And then on January 1st, 2019, our second show. That was Egbert Gaye's first appearance on the show. I was so excited for that moment because, listen, as someone that has listened to CJAD 800 for my entire life, I loved listening to Egbert Gaye, and I disagreed with a lot of what he had to say, but Egbert Gaye was great radio. I always wanted to listen to Egbert. And I knew it. I could tell over the last, 4.5 years here on CJAD 800, there were many of you that disagreed with what Egbert Gaye had to say. And having said that, you simply wanted to hear his thoughts. So I go back to that second show, and here's the other thing, and this is the thing about how the pandemic unfortunately changed things. When we started the show, panelists, everyone was in studio. And it was a treat every week, for Egbert Gaye to be in studio with us. We weren't doing the big five was not over the phone or over Zoom. Everyone was in studio. So I go back to that second show, and I can even see it right now. I can see Egbert Gaye in front of me, in front of the CJAD 800 microphone. And there was a reason why Egbert Gaye was so special. Egbert Gaye would make arguments. You could disagree with him, but he knew what we were doing here. He understood radio. He understood that what we were doing was we were presenting different viewpoints. We could disagree with each other. Sometimes, there was a take that Egbert had that would have, and I would be flabbergasted by it, and I could give him a knock on air. And then at the end of the Big Five, and when we started, it wasn't even called the Big Five. Whenever the red light would go off, the on-air light would go off, it was, okay, it was fine. We disagreed. Who cares? We're still friends. And I think, when I think about the lessons of Egbert Gaye, and I think something that we can all take away from Egbert Gaye on CJAD 800 is to be a little bit more like that when we're talking about the public discourse that we have right now. And I think about the things that we can learn about Egbert Gaye on CJAD 800 is that you can disagree with someone. And then after you've debated and you've talked about it, you're still friends. And you're still, bringing it in close right after the, when Egbert would leave the studio, we'd always come in for a bro hug at the end, right? It's like, hey, Egbert, I'll see you next week. And I think that is something that's missing from the public discourse right now. I think that's the big lesson that we should take away. I think about how often now we see people, we hear people that don't even want to debate with someone who is on the other side. Here's the thing about Egbert Gaye. He relished that. Oh, you don't agree with me? I can't wait to talk to you about it. And I think now too often, and by the way, Egbert, right? This is a guy that was on the left, but he was a guy that was on the left that never shied away from debate. Too often now, we're not seeing that. Too often now, what we're seeing is the opposite, right? Oh, you are opposed to me politically? I don't want to talk to you. So, I think about Egbert Gaye would always come into the studio. We'd have a great discussion. And then it was like, well, you know what? We can disagree, but we can still be friends. let's everyone start to do that a little bit more. Take a look at our opponent's viewpoints and think of the generous interpretation of their viewpoints and use that as a reason to bridge the gap and not divide. So I think about Egbert Gaye, I think about his family, I think about his wife Elizabeth, I think about his entire family, his son and his daughter-in-law, the newborn grandson. I think about the entire family, and our heart goes out to all of them because I'm gonna miss Egbert Gaye on this program so much. And when the pandemic started, right, and now we couldn't see each other in studio, I remember our FaceTime calls, and it's so funny because I remember setting up Face ID on Egbert's iPhone in studio. Some of the things that we could do in person, and I got a new iPhone. And I remember he was like, I don't know how to work this thing. And when I was showing him how to use Face ID, we set that up. And then the pandemic starts. And then we would actually have these FaceTime calls. And we would, he would call me for various reasons. I remember he called me up once about his car purchase, and we would have these discussions. And I just remember the ways that Egbert and I would have great conversations both on air and off air. And I want to say the pandemic robbed us of something. And all of the days that we could have seen each other face to face and we didn't, because we spent a couple of years not being able to come into studio, the pandemic really robbed us of those moments. And I think about that and how much that hurts that we didn't have those opportunities to see each other face to face for a couple of years. But it didn't matter when we did see each other. And I still remember the first time Egbert came back into studio after the whole pandemic stuff and seeing him face to face for the first time in forever. What greeted me? The hug again, right? He came in for the hug right away. And I'll always remember Egbert Gaye. I also want to think about Montreal Community Contact here. I want to think about the legacy of what he brought to this city back in 1992. It's 30 years later, and Montreal Community Contact still going strong. And I think there's a debt of gratitude in this city about what Egbert Gaye gave us with Montreal Community Contact. And I'll leave you with this. There's a little piece of Egbert Gaye in my fridge right now, and it's his Scotch Bonnet hot sauce. I still have it in my fridge. He gave it to me as a Christmas gift this year when he came into studio right before Christmas. It's still in my fridge, and I've been just taking a little smooth, putting it on my sandwiches. Every time I'm making a sandwich, it's the hottest hot sauce out there. It's Scotch Bonnet sauce. And at least, I've got that little piece of Egbert Gaye that I'm going to hang on to for as long as possible. Been thinking about Egbert Gaye for a couple of weeks now since his passing. I just want to take this moment here to talk to you about him.